Hi there, how are you doing today? I and my buddy Joe English are going to answer some ACT English section test questions together. So without further ado, let's share the PDF. All right, so today's passage we're going to discuss is entitled The Reappearance of the Ivory-Billed Woodpecker. The reappearance of the ivory-billed woodpecker. Let's read the first sentence. In the spring of 1999, a university student, also an avid hunter, stalked wild turkeys in the woods of Louisiana's blah, blah, blah. So the underlined portion here, in the spring of 1999, comma, a university student, and we continue. So I think it doesn't need any change here. No change is the best answer, because if we compare this one with other choices like B, in the spring, comma, of 1999, comma, we don't do that. So we should not put comma after spring and then after 1999. We just put a comma after the year. So in the spring of this year, 1999, 2000, etc., comma, a student did, a university student or a student did such and such, okay? So this is the first sentence. So the best answer is A, no change. Remember that this choice is valid and it's a correct answer in many questions, provided that you read it and you find out that this is the best answer. Even if you choose 5, 6, 7 answers with no change, don't say that, okay, there are how many no change correct answers on the test. It's just the only thing that lets you choose it is when you read the question and you discover that this is the best answer compared to the other alternatives, right? So now let's move to number 2. He did not expect to discover a far more rarer bird. So we should say a far more rare bird, right? Remember, we use more and most if the adjective is irregular, right? And we don't use ER and EST in this case, right? So the best answer for 2 is H, a far more rare bird that had been, etc., etc. Okay, now moving on to number 3. A pair of ivory-billed woodpeckers, eventually leading to an exhaustive search. So we should say would eventually lead, right? Because leading, if we add ing to the verb, it does not remain a verb. So it cannot be the verb of a sentence if we add ing to the verb, because it turns into a gerund or noun, right? So we should say would eventually lead. The best answer for 3 is B, would eventually lead. Now let's move to number 4. The population of the ivory-billed woodpecker in the native habitat, we should say in its native habitat. We're talking about the woodpecker, so it refers back to it, and it's actually a possessive pronoun. It's a possessive pronoun for the woodpecker. We say its without apostrophe. So the best answer for 4 is H. Now moving on to number 5. By the 1920s, the species which is the ivory-billed woodpecker, blah, blah, blah. So should we say the species, comma, ivory-billed woodpecker, or the ivory-billed woodpecker, the species, or just the species? We are talking about the woodpecker in this passage, so there is no need to repeat it over and over. And remember, on the ACT as well as the SAT, being shorter is better. So the species, now we know we're talking about the ivory-billed woodpecker, so there's no need to repeat that over and over. So the best answer for 5 is D. Shorter is better when it is the best answer. Okay, now let's move on to number 6. Let's read it. All right. Governments and the National Audubon Society logging began in the forest, and by 1944, the last known ivory belt, blah, blah, blah. So let's read it from the beginning. Despite pleas from 4 state governments and the National Society, logging began in the forest. So it's natural. It sounds correct. There's no need to change it. So no change is the best answer here. 6F, right? Yeah, compared to the other choices, we will find that. So here he says, despite pleas from government, logging began in the forest, and by, so comma, and by 1944, the last known species had disappeared. Remember, these are 2 sentences. They are joined by a comma and one of the fanboys. So that's acceptable. If we have 2 sentences joined by just a comma, this is wrong. If we have 2 sentences joined by a comma and one of the fanboys, then this is correct, right? So as we said, 6F is the best answer. Let's move now to 7. The only evidence of the species survival. So here we want to say the species survival would be B. We need an apostrophe for the possession, right? Possessive apostrophe, but we should not write another S after species. We don't say species survival. We just say the species, plural, comma, survival. So it's not, sorry, not comma, apostrophe, the possessive apostrophe. So the best answer is B. Here, 7B. Okay. Which of the alternatives best provides new specific information about the search of the ivory-billed woodpecker? Let's just read the sentence. This hope led a team of biologists to conduct an extensive search for the elusive bird in 2002. Okay, all right, we need new and specific information. If we read through these alternatives, we will find that J, he says, in 2002, biologists from Louisiana State University spent nearly a month in the Pearl River Wildlife Management Area searching for a bird. It's new and specific information. So we know where these researchers are from, Louisiana State University. We know how long did they spend, or how long they spent, a month, and where, the Pearl River Wildlife Management, right? And they were searching for this bird, or the ivory-billed woodpecker. So J, compared to the other alternatives, provides new and specific information about the search for that ivory belt. So remember, if you have a prompt at the beginning of the question, you gotta read the prompt and read it carefully, so you decide what the best answer is in that case. Now moving on to number 9. Yeah, the elusive bird, yeah, semicolon, but determined it later it was likely the echoes from a gunshot. So point here is that we have a semicolon, and then but determined later it was likely the echoes from the gunshot. So if we read, they made a sound recording, but determined. So it is one sentence. Because it's one sentence, we should not use a semicolon, we should just use a comma. So B is the best answer. Remember, at the boundaries of sentences, we can use a period, full stop, or a colon, or a semicolon, right? but within a sentence, we can use the comma. We can also use at the boundaries of sentences a comma, provided that it is joined by one of the fanboys. Okay, so here we have one example of one sentence, right? So we don't need to put anything that marks the boundary of two sentences. It's just one sentence. So B, 9B is the best answer. We just use a comma. So now moving on to number 10. Yeah, here he says, which of the following sequences of sentences will make paragraph 3 most logical? Questions like that, leave them at the end because they require you to read all the sentences of the paragraph quickly and decide on the most logical answer and so on. So here, if we do that, we will discover that J is the best answer. So the best arrangement of the sentences in that paragraph would be 1 and then 2, and then sentence number 4, and then number 3 and 5. Not 3, 4, but 4 and then 3, right? As I said, questions like that, leave them at the end if you have time. Read quickly and try to find the answer. If not, you just gotta make a choice. And if you can use a process of elimination to eliminate 1 or 2 alternatives you are sure are wrong, then you are left with 2 choices. Just make a choice between them. Now let's move to number 11. Yeah. Let's read it. Yeah, they needed to confirm existence of the bird, comma, so then in 2004, comma, a large woodpecker, right? So we should just say they needed to confirm the existence of the bird and then period or full stop. And then we say in 2004, a large woodpecker was videotaped. So the best answer here, according to that reading, would be C, right? So 11C. We have 2 sentences. They needed to confirm the existence of the bird, period. And then in 2004, a large woodpecker was videotaped. That's another sentence. So the best choice for 11 is C, choice number or letter C. Let's now move to 12. Its wings, we're talking about the woodpecker, its wings, flight, and plumage were cited as evidence that the bird was indeed an ivory-billed woodpecker. Yeah, so this sentence sounds correct. There's no need to change anything. So F is the best answer, no change. Now let's move to 13, right? Okay. Let's read it from the beginning. Yeah, this is actually the beginning of 13. Fearing bird watchers flooding, further searches were conducted in secret because they didn't want to attract lots or hordes of many tourists to come in that area. So that's what they want to say. Fearing bird watchers flooding, should we say that? Or should we say fearing a flood of bird watchers? Well, we should say fearing a flood of bird watchers, as in C, further searches were conducted in secret, not to attract attention of many people, right? So it's just the word order here. C is the best answer. Let's move on to 14, and 14 is, while there remain skeptics, the ornithology community now generally accepted the existence of the ivory-billed woodpecker, right? So if we look at the beginning of the sentence, while, this is a subordinator, remain, this is a verb in the present, so the other sentence should have a verb in the present and not in the past. So this has to do with linking two sentences, one verb in the dependent sentence in the present, so the other one should be in the present as well. So G is the best answer, 14G. We should say, while there remain skeptics, now this community accepts, right? Remain and accepts are both in present. So this is the best answer, G. Now let's move on to number 15. Yeah. The writer wants to add the following sentence to paragraph 4. Approximately 15 sightings were reported in early 2004 and possibly of the same bird. This sentence would most logically be placed where? So also questions like this require more time, so you can leave such questions till the end. If you have time, you can just read quickly and decide what is the best answer. So the best answer, if we read it, would be D after sentence 3. After sentence 3, right? So good luck to all test takers who will set for the April version of the test, and I will see you in the next one.